So without any further ado, Summer, Kelsey, did you want to introduce yourselves?
Yeah, sounds good. So I'm Kelsey. I run our product team here at GoFormz. I'm the Senior Director of Product Management. I work with Summer and other product managers in our engineering team to build what GoFormz is today and going to be in the future. Summer?
Yeah, hi everyone. So as Kelsey said, my name is Summer Wilkie. I'm a product manager here at GoFormz, and I'm responsible for managing data capture, which includes templates, template management, fields, and the experiences associated with those. And really excited to be here today.
Wonderful. All right, for the webinar today, we're going to cover e-signature. Hopefully you are all expecting that by now. We're going to cover just a little bit of difference in signature types because GoFormz does offer more than one type of signature capture, and that's going to include a little bit of background on the eSign Act. Then we're going to go over the benefits of mobile forms and e-signature and how they can work really well together and what the flexibility benefits are of having your legally binding signatures on the go. Then we're going to actually see all of this in action. You're going to get a walkthrough of the live platform, being able to see exactly how e-signature works and how you can configure it within your account and what it looks like to actually sign through a form. And then we're going to get to do a quick summary and all the questions that you'll be submitting throughout the entire webinar.
All right, let's get started. So let's kick it off with what's the difference between signature types. What we're going to cover here is what is e-signature. And we're going to start with some key definitions. Let's start with basic signature. A basic signature is a simple dark mark that marks a document showing agreement, right? It can be anything from writing onto a signature, it can be a symbol, it can be the clicking of a button, it could be a full out signature. It can be done with a handwritten pen, it can be done digitally. The key here about a basic signature is not inherently legally binding. And that's the key, the difference between a signature and an e-signature when it comes to capturing them both digitally, but also capturing them as a what we call a wet signature, something that you write on a piece of paper. Legally binding is defined as the record is enforceable by law. So just like it sounds, it's enforceable by a law. When you sign it, it becomes a legal document that you can enforce in the courts. E-signature at GoFormz, as opposed to a basic signature, is a signature at GoFormz that is a signature data type that is captured in accordance with the eSign Act in the United States, making its signature legally binding. So that document then becomes legally binding, and it's meeting the criteria of the eSign Act within the United States. So those are some three key definitions what we'll be talking through today. But let's dive a little bit more into the e-signature at GoFormz. So like I said, the e-signature at GoFormz is a signature data type that meets the requirements of the eSign Act. Here at GoFormz, when it comes to e-signature, there are two acts that we are compliant with. There's the eSign Act and the UETA. eSign Act is what defines what makes a signature legally binding. What the criteria is to have a legally binding signature in a digital format. The UETA is what allows you to capture a signature digitally and make it that it is as valid as capturing a wet signature or a signature that you captured in person with somebody signing with a pen and paper. So with these two in combination, we then have the ability to have e-signature compliant signatures with a digital form using a service like GoFormz. So getting a little bit more into the criteria that the eSign Act lays out, there are 5 main principles that we must meet in order to have a legally binding signature. The first one is the intent to sign electronically. This is essentially the signer themselves or signers demonstrate an intent to do business electronically with you and do business over a digital format, not necessarily, again, with a paper or clipboard or in person. It's their intent is to sign this document electronically. Similarly, they must also demonstrate consent to sign with their digital signature, giving authorization to say that this is my signature, I do intend to do this electronically, and that this is the signature that I would like to use to sign this record electronically. Next is confirming the identity of the signer, making sure we know who is signing this form and making sure that they're an appropriate person to sign this form. And that goes hand in hand with number 4 there, with the ability to authenticate the signature. We want to authenticate that the signature being signed on the form is belonging to the person that we identified as the signer. And then finally, maintaining a secure electronic record for all parties. This means that all signers and the person requesting the form, so the one sending out the form to be signed, maintain that secure electronic record and have a record of the document that they signed at the time that they signed it. So what are some risks at not using an e-signature, especially as not using an e-signature in a digital format, as opposed to using something where you're writing down signatures? Some of the key risks that we have seen customers run into and why they lean towards more of a digital transformation solution like GoFormz is minimizing your audience by requiring to go and meet with that person in person and have them sign the document, or mail it to them, have them sign it, or even using a fax machine. Not a lot of people have access to a fax machine. I actually just found out that my scanner is broken at home. And so I know a lot of people are in that same position or don't even have a scanner or know what a scanner is. You're limiting your audience by requiring for that wet signature, whereas you could be using a secure e-signature like our e-signature solution to capture that sign off. You risk losing customers. Like I said, not a lot of people are living in that more manual analog age anymore. It's all digital. And if you're not able to reach those customers to get their signatures, you're not able to capture that information or work with them moving forward. It'll slow your paperwork processing down. If everything's on paper, as we've seen with GoFormz customers coming in, as we've seen people trying to solve that paper problem, signatures are a big part of those papers, and not having those signatures in the electronic format or being able to capture those secure signatures in a digital format slows your process down. And then finally, the danger of throttling your business growth. If you cannot expand as quickly as the digital format would allow you to do, you're limiting your growth as a business. So recommending using signatures in a digital format is the best path forward for you to be able to capture this data. And with that, let's talk a little bit about the benefits in mobile forms. I'm going to pass it over to Summer to talk about these benefits.
Awesome. Thanks, Kelsey. Yeah, so in this section, we're going to talk about the benefits of mobile forms with e-signature. So let's go ahead and start with who can benefit. Well, actually, simply put, all industries, B2B and B2C alike. Take any industry and you can probably quickly come up with multiple situations where they might need to capture a legally binding signature as part of their regular business practice. This is especially helpful for businesses with paper-intensive processes, where replacing the paper process with a digital process saves them resources, money, and time, especially if they're looking to streamline their data collection and improve their processing times. The ability to capture these legally binding signatures digitally save companies not only time and money, but in addition, they're able to access a copy digitally in the future. So time is saved not only when the signature is captured, but during each stage of the process after the signature has been captured. GoFormz also benefits organizations looking for an all-in-one mobile form solution. This allows for tech stack consolidation, simplifying the process for all parties involved during data collection, both those who are actually creating and managing forms with e-signature and those who are actually signing those forms. Cool, we can move on to the next slide. So up next, what are some popular use cases? Well, when your organization needs to capture a legally binding signature, GoFormz and eSign can help to support your process. A few examples of legally binding agreements you can see on the page where a legally binding signature could be digitally captured. So first you see renewals, like sales renewals and lease renewals. So for example, a lease agreement that requires a legally binding signature from a tenant that could be sent to the tenant's email address via a single-use public form. Second on here, contracts. You could utilize a single-use public form to send a contract, and once it's signed and submitted, you could use a workflow to send the form to an additional signer, or even kick off additional forms in your process, such as a work order that then populates based on the data you gathered in that initial contract. Consent forms, this is like policies and care forms. HR documents, you could use GoFormz e-signature to gather the necessary signatures throughout the entire hiring process, from applications through onboarding the new employee to yearly and quarterly reviews. Registration forms. So let's say you need to gather registration forms for individuals to participate in an event. You can set the necessary fields required, including the eSign field, to make sure that you have the necessary information when the form is completed. As the registration forms are signed and completed, you can have a workflow set up that automatically sends completed forms to your cloud storage platform of choice, automating and streamlining both capturing the signature and your registration form management. The next example on here is purchase agreements and invoices. And then the final example today, imagine you have an incident report that needs to be completed. Once it has been e-signed and submitted, a notification can be automatically emailed to the site manager along with a copy of the incident report itself, which saves valuable time if and when an incident does occur. All right, moving on. So what are some advantages to your business? Well, first, increase contract completion speed. Signing digitally removes unnecessary steps from your process. You no longer have to physically send a piece of paper to a destination, but can accomplish each step digitally. The moment your contract is signed, you can set up workflows to kick off the next steps of your process, and appropriate storage of your contract can be automated as well. Next, enhance document security and legal compliance. The digitally signed form is also digitally stored after being signed, which reduces human error, contributing to lost or damaged records. Copies of the document can be easily accessed when and if they're needed, as well as automatically sent to the necessary recipients for compliance. Lower transaction and admin costs. With eSignature, you're able to be more automated and streamlined, saving admins time and energy that would have previously been necessary for each individual form. Additional forms can be generated with just a few clicks. You can also configure your necessary fields to be required, which ensures your legally binding documents are complete upon form submission, which eliminates the need for that admin to spend time on additional communication. And then finally, a really important one to companies, improved customer experience. No one wants their customers to be bogged down by process. Collapsing the full experience to just the actions that matter the most creates a more positive customer experience. Once the customer signs and submits their form, the rest of the process can be automated, and the customer receives a copy of the form that they have e-signed. Now you can engage a customer wherever they are, even on the go, which also expands your customer reach. Cool.
Awesome. Thank you, Summer. So let's see it in action. So today we're going to show you guys a couple of different ways you can use eSignature and the process you go through, both as the admin of the GoFormz account, but also as the form user who's going to be signing the signature or the eSignature field on a form. So we'll start by adding eSignature fields to your GoFormz forms. So bringing up a template and adding the eSignature fields to this template. How you then can share and collect eSignature from an end user. How you can track the signature process throughout the full audit history, maintaining that electronic record that's a requirement from the eSign Act. And then example of how GoFormz workflow setup can send off an eSignature to be captured automatically for you. So we'll go ahead and jump into that. So we're going to start here with our work order template. You'll see it's already primarily built out, but I'll just go down to the bottom. There are two spaces here for signatures. And what I'm going to need here in this example is I'm going to need a signature by myself, by the person who's filling out the form. And then you need a customer approval, who's somebody who's not part of my GoFormz organization and that I need to go capture an e-signature from. You'll notice over here on the left, we have two new signature types. We do also have our existing signature type, which I'll talk about in a second here. But with eSign specific, we have two options on what you can do to capture an eSign specific signature or initials. We can drag our signature field on, which is a full signature. It's going to be a full name. You can adjust the sizing and apply it to the line. You can also drag on an initials field. This is going to be an up to 3 character initials. So if you just need a quick initials for somebody, it still can be eSignature compliant. Just needs to be able to capture the 3 characters that you would need for your initials, but it'll follow the same rules of eSignature compliance. You can also switch between these in our properties. So say you drag on initials, you change your mind, you actually want a signature type, you can go up here and shift that, and it'll become a signature for you. So I'm actually going to make that into a signature, and I'm going to move it over to this customer approval. We're going to name this one here signature, since it's just going to be coming from the GoFormz account here. We're going to name it signature, but over here, we'll name this approver signature, because this is a signature I need from the approver that's going to be, again, not part of my GoFormz environment, not a user in my GoFormz team. I need to send it out to them externally to capture that signature. One other thing that you'll notice here about our e-signature, especially if you are familiar with our current signature or our legacy signature field here, is it does look a little bit different. We are now signifying that this is an e-signature field. When I try to resize it, it's going to always maintain the same aspect ratio. That's because a key part of being eSign compliant is we need to have a legible, readable signature. Whereas with our signature field here, it is a little bit more flexible. You can move it around. It can be any size that you'd like to fit on the background of your PDF. However, it's not going to be inherently legally binding and meet the e-signature compliance rules and regulations. So you can use either type of signature if you would like, but if you need it to be an eSign compliant, legally binding document, We do highly recommend using our eSign signature or eSign initial solutions. I'm going to go ahead and remove this signature. Now that I've added both of my signatures to this template, I'm going to go ahead and save it and publish the template. And now we're going to create a form. So we're going to switch hats. We're going to go from being the admin who creates the template to being the person who fills out the form. I'm going to go ahead and hit create form here. Now you'll see a lot of the information on this form is already populated for me. This is leveraging some of our tools like our calculations and our data sources. I'm going to go in here and select the customer that I would like to send this to. So in this instance, in this use case, I am filling out a work order that needs to then be signed off by Baxter Wilson here. And I need to send it to this email. I need to send the form over to that email to be captured and have the form be available to capture that e-signature from Baxter here. We're going to go ahead and put in some fake data using some of our calculations. We'll go in and select from a data source. Here, we'll skip the images for now. When I get down to my signature space, you'll see my two new signature areas here. This is my name here. I am David Rose at Rose Apothecary. I'm going to fill in the date, and then I'm going to open up my e-signature fields that I need to sign as the submitter. What you'll notice here is this is slightly different than our current signature solution. What you're seeing is a pre-populated signature based off the name that I have associated with my GoFormz account that I'm logged into currently. You'll also notice that this is not editable for me right now. This is because with every e-sign, every e-signature that a GoFormz user is using, it'll save to their account. This means that a GoFormz user can have one saved eSign signature and one saved eSign initials that they can use across the templates that they are going to be e-signing. This also means that you cannot edit your signature when you are filling out a form. The only time that is possible is if you have not set your eSign signature or your eSign initials for your account before, then you'll be able to choose it while filling out the form itself. However, once it's set, it's going to pre-populate, and this is to maintain the identity of the signer. Once you have chosen your signature, it stays with your account. Now you can go and change it. I'll show you guys how to do that in a second with your settings page. But when you're signing a form, we want to maintain the knowledge of identifying who the user is that's signing it and authenticity, my goodness, of that signature itself. You also notice a disclosure down here. This is where we're capturing that intent and that consent to sign, as well as giving you a link to our terms of service that explores e-signature more and talks about how GoFormz is e-sign compliant with our e-sign fields. So I'm going to go ahead and hit sign. I have now e-signed this form. Everything looks good. I'm ready to send this off to my end user in order to get that signature. So I'll hit complete. And now I've completed this form. What I can see now is I can see the form history where I'm creating that audit trail of when the form was created, completed, and when it was e-signed. It'll show the version, which is the version that I just created by completing it. And it'll show that that version was e-signed by David Rose, myself, who's logged in. You'll also see here that it's been reopened. This is because we have a workflow that has now taken this form and has sent it over to my customer, who is Baxter Wilson, to be able to open it as a public form and sign it himself. So we're going to hop over to Baxter now, and we're going to look into his email, and we'll see he's received an email from David Rose via GoFormz sending a public form. This is all done through a workflow, which will show you guys once we hop back into our GoFormz account. As Baxter, now I'm not a GoFormz user. Baxter does not have a license in David Rose's account, but he can sign a form using a public form. What we've done here is we've sent a link to Baxter using a personalized message and using information from that form itself. As Baxter, I can now open up this form, again, not as a GoFormz user, and access it in order to sign it electronically. Now, one of the key movements here is we have to verify that Baxter Wilson is the appropriate person to be signing this form. This was sent to Baxter, but if somebody was able to access that link, it could not be Baxter who was signing the form. So what we're asking here is we're asking for Baxter to enter in his email address. We're going to cheat a little bit and go and copy it here, just so you guys don't have to watch me type it in. Once I've entered in the email address for Baxter and it matches the exact email address that this form was sent to, we can hit confirm. Now, if it doesn't match that, so say I typed it in incorrectly, or if I've entered in an email address that this form was not directly sent to, it's going to give me a little bit of a warning message. It's going to say, hey, your email doesn't match. Please try again or contact the sender of the form. Maybe they sent it to the wrong email address. Maybe the link was shared in another way and you're not entering the correct verification in order to access this form. But essentially what we want to know here is that Baxter received the form, is the appropriate person to be signing it, and should continue forward to sign it by entering in their email. You can also send public forms with an eSign compliant field by text message. The verification will work the same. You just need to enter the phone number that it was sent to instead of the email address. So now as Baxter here, I have received the form. All of these fields here that David entered, they're not editable. I don't need to edit it. But what I do need to edit are the 3 fields that I would like to apply my signature to. So I've reviewed this. This looks great. I'm going to go ahead and enter in my name. I'm going to enter in the date that I'm going to be signing. And then now it's my turn to eSign. This is where I'll get a slightly different experience, not being a GoFormz user who has a Sage signature. As Baxter, I can come in here and enter my signature. Let's say David spelled my name wrong. I can go in and change it if I need to, or I can create a new signature. But when I sign, this is the signature that I will use throughout the rest of the form. So if there are multiple signatures that I need to sign within the same form, it will need to be the same signature that I sign. Again, maintaining that identity of the signer and making sure that multiple people aren't signing under the assumed identity of the person that's supposed to be signing it. Once I've set my signature, I'm agreeing to the same terms that David Rose agreed to when we are e-signing a form, again, linking to the terms of service, and then hitting sign. And it's as simple as that. It populates my signature in there. I am done. I've reviewed. I agree to it as Baxter. I'm going to hit submit. Yes. And now let's jump back. So now that I have submitted the form, we'll see it's been created up here. We know that this has been sent as a public form. I can go back and look at the form history, and now I can see this audit trail of David Rose e-signed it in this version here, but then also Baxter Wilson e-signed this form here, creating an audit trail of when it was signed and what the version looked like at that point of signing. As Baxter, I'll also receive an email with a record of that PDF. Now, this PDF does need to go through the same verification as it did before, making sure that Baxter is the appropriate person to be accessing this form who signed it initially. I'll hit confirm, and it's going to give me a PDF version of the form that I signed at the time that I signed it. The same is going to be true for David. So if I go into my profile here, you can see where I can set my signature and my initials. So for David, I don't have initials set yet, but I do have a signature. I can come in here and change it if I would like it. So say my name changes and I need to change my last name in here. You can come in here and adjust your signature, and it will adjust for all signatures moving forward. It will not change any in the past that you had signed, but it will adjust moving forward. But I can also view my signed forms, which are going to do a very similar thing to what the email did for Baxter, who's not a GoFormz user. It's going to create that audit trail of the version that you signed as the user signed in. So you always have access to the forms that you signed and the PDF versions of those signs. So you always know what data you signed and agreed to when you were creating an e-signature for that form. The final thing I want to show you guys is workflows. So what made it so that once David Rose completed the form and sent that form over to Baxter, how did that happen automatically? Well, that was using our workflow tool. So workflows are automations that can happen within GoFormz. They're triggered off an event. In this case, our workflow is going to be triggered off of our form complete. Any form coming from that work order form that we completed in that template will then be triggered, will trigger this workflow to be able to send off to whoever I need it to be. We'll have a step in there to change the form status. When you're sending off a public form, the form does need to be in draft because it needs to be editable by that end user. So I have a step in here to change that form status back to a draft. And then finally, we have our create public form step here. This is what automated that action to send it over to Baxter for me. In this step, I'm asking for that form to be created into a public form link, making it available for somebody who's not a GoFormz user. I'm enabling the required settings of sharing that PDF after the form, again, maintaining that audit trail as part of the eSign Act, and verifying the recipient's identity. These both need to be enabled if you're going to be making an e-signature field editable on a public form. I didn't set an expiration time, but you have the opportunity to do that in this step if you'd like for your public form link. I then identified which fields I would like to have be editable by that end user. Again, I can make all of these fields. If it's blank, I can make all those fields editable, but really what I needed from Baxter was for him to apply his name, his date, and his signature using that e-signature field. I then sent it over by email, and I used the data from the form that we collected, knowing that I needed to send this to Baxter and it needed to go to Baxter's email address, and dynamically sent that off. This is where that customer or the customized message comes from. I'm able to also pull in information from the form that I collected already and send that off, and making sure that Baxter knows who this is coming from and why I'm asking him to go in and sign this. That all happened automatically as soon as I completed the form as David Rose, sending it off and creating that automated feature that is so powerful within GoFormz, saving you a lot of time and needing to go collect that signature either in person, sending it over separately in email, or needing to send it to them and create a public form manually. We can now do that all automatically using our workflow tool. All right, and that's all I have to show you guys today.
Thank you for walking through all that, Kelsey. All right, I think on the next slide, we've got just a couple quick summary points, which is a perfect time if you've had any questions come up, because Summer and Kelsey both just walked you through a lot of information. So if you've got some questions to throw in, by all means, pop them into the channel, into that Q&A box now. But some of the things that we really want you to feel comfortable walking away from this webinar with are the idea of getting increased contract completion. So faster, absolutely accurate, verified payment information. These are the streamlined details that you get to walk away with by implementing eSign into your mobile forms. You'll also get enhanced document security, not to mention legal compliance. So that eSign Act and the UETA that Kelsey discussed earlier, you know that these can be supported by using e-signature within GoFormz. We always throw out the recommendation for absolutely everyone, however, that depending on your use case and your industry, your business, and your location, sometimes those individual requirements might vary. So always work with either a business attorney, business advisor, professionals in your area, just to make sure that your use case exactly is legally compliant. You're also going to see lower transaction and administrative costs. So your overall change management, a lot smoother, a lot faster, a lot easier if you have e-signature embedded in your mobile forms, giving you the ability to capture all those signatures on the go from any device, anywhere, anytime. You'll also see an improved experience for your clients. They're going to see your beautifully branded form, a nice, quick, clean signature capture, and that's it. You don't have to deal with any messy PDFs. You don't have to hope that they have Adobe installed on their machines or that they're next to their computer, since it can be open on multiple devices. So you've got some options. And then, of course, consolidating your tech stack. Everybody loves it when software is integrated. Data should always communicate with itself so that you don't have to do it manually, which is the #1 goal of GoFormz, taking the manual processes out of your data entry. So let's get to a few of the questions, if that's all right. Let's see. Oh, we actually have, so we have a question from Lisa. Is there an easier way to list the fields that are editable on the public forms? What if all but a few fields are editable on the public forms?
Yeah, within the workflow, the way to do that today is by listing them individually. However, that's really great feedback. Knowing the use case of having a lot of fields and you really actually just want some of them, you just want to exclude a couple of them, would reduce your time and effort of setting up this workflow to be able to do that. So it's definitely feedback we'll take back to our team and explore and see if there's a way that we can reverse this or have the option to say, hey, I actually only want to exclude a couple of fields, but I want everything else to be editable. When you're creating a public form in a manual sense, meaning you're not using a workflow, you're actually on our public forms tab here and you're creating one. So we'll select a form. You can do that by selecting all. So you can select all here and go in and unclick just a few. So say I only want these 3 to be not editable, but everything else should be editable. That's also another easy way to do that. But from the workflow standpoint, that's excellent feedback. It's something we'll definitely take back to our team.
Wonderful. All right, we have another question in from Charles. Does GoFormz charge per signature?
No. So signatures are available at all paid tiers. So starting at team and then going through advanced and enterprise, you can add a signature to any form that you like, an e-signature, excuse me, to any form that you like, and you can add as many as you'd like to any form, but not per signature.
Which is one of my favorite things about it. You don't get surprise bills at the end just because you had a lot of contracts, not punished for doing well in your business.
Exactly.
Let's see. Also, Kelsey, I don't know if I mentioned this earlier. I didn't realize the David Rose was the business owner.
Yes.
That was
Big
beautifully
fan.
done. That took me a little bit by surprise, but I liked it.
Yes, always referencing some pop culture in here.
It's delightful. Let's see. We've got a question from Matt about accessing forms. So is there a place where you can access all of your signed forms? Is there a storage limit?
Yeah, the best place to access your forms kind of depends on who you are as a signer. If you're a GoFormz user, you'll be able to access your forms in the same way that you access any other form on this forms list. This will be the active state of the form itself. However, if you want to access the forms that you signed, you can go into your My Signed Forms here under your settings. And this will create that archive of all of the forms that you signed in the version that you signed, applicable to you. So as the user signed in, you can go in here, click on this, and open up the PDF of that form. Now, if you're not a GoFormz user and you signed it using that public form use case, then you will receive a copy of that form either by text message or phone number, depending on how it was sent to you, and you can maintain your audit trail there. And there's no storage limit. Sorry, I'm about to answer the second part. No, there is no storage limit to the number of form versions that we will save here for you in the My Signed Forms, similar to your form state here. So there's no storage limit to the number of forms that you can have here in your GoFormz account. And then, of course, with your public forms use case, who's receiving that as a text message or an email, that would be up to your service provider. So in the email case, there may be a storage limit there, but that's beyond GoFormz.
Perfect. Thank you. Okay, how about this question from Tracy? Tracy is wondering if she can request signatures from people outside of her GoFormz account.
Yep, that's using that public form use case. You can either do that manually by creating a public form link of a form that's already been created. It is important to note that you cannot request e-signatures using a public form link that's based off of a template itself. So we have two different types of public forms here. When you go and you create them, you do have to choose an existing form to base your public form link off of. The reason for this is we need to, again, be able to verify the identity and send it directly to the signer in order to capture that e-signature to be eSign compliant. And with a template-based public form, every time you access that link, it essentially creates a new form. So there's no way for us to track down who it is that accessed and was supposed to be signing it and then authenticate that that is the right person that's supposed to be signing it. So you do need to choose a form to base your public form link off of. But once you've done that, then you'll be able to send it out to anybody that you would like to be a signer, sending it directly to them by text message or by email.
Perfect and practical too. All right, next question is from Ken. Ken wants to know if there's a limit on how many signatures you can have on a form.
Nope, there is no limit. You can drag as many e-signature fields onto a single form as you would like. However, I will note that only one signer can be signing it at a time. That's not to say that multiple signers can't sign a form as we showed in the demo. But when you own the form as a GoFormz user, only you can sign those e-sign fields. You will need to transfer it to somebody else to capture their signature. Or if you are signing it as yourself and then sending it off as a public form, that public form user can only sign it as that saved signature that they make in that first e-sign field of their experience, using that same signature throughout. So only one person at a time can be signing a form, but you can have as many e-sign fields on a single form as you'd like.
This next question actually, rather fortuitously, kind of lines up with that. What if you need an eSign compliant signature from multiple people outside of your organization on the same form? How do you collect each of them?
Yeah, the best way to do that again is using our public form tool. What you'll want to do here is you'll want to create your public form link, enable the appropriate signature fields for signer number 1, send it off directly to them. And then, like Summer talked about a little while ago, get a notification using our workflow tool to say, signer 1 has signed it when they submit it back to you. And then that's your trigger to go create a new public form to send it to signer number 2, making the appropriate fields available for signer number 2, and etc. As you need to go through to signer number 3, signer number 4, you will want to do them one at a time. So sending them off and triggering, once you get that signature back, send it off to signer number 2, then signer number 3. But all done through our public form tool, and then using workflow, any of those notifications or any automations that you'd like to do there.
Perfect. Okay, that looks like that's a wrap on the questions.
Okay.
If any more come through, I'll keep you posted. Or if you last minute want to throw a question in there and we're just about to shut down the webinar, don't worry, we'll reach out to you and we'll touch base and make sure we answer your question individually. As a reminder, we will be sending out a recap email that includes a little bit more detail about everything that we covered, as well as the recording of the webinar too. But I think, yeah, we're ready just to go on to general announcements. If you have not seen, experienced, or taken the GoFormz certification course yet, I cannot think of a reason why you wouldn't. The certification itself is absolutely free to do. It gets you a lot more insight and detail, and most importantly, practice using GoFormz, getting more comfortable with the platform and becoming an expert on it yourself. And then, as I mentioned before, you're going to also get a recap email with this webinar recording in it. So keep an eye on your inbox later this week. And I believe those are the biggest updates that we've got. But if you have questions that come up about any of this, just because the webinar is over doesn't mean that we're not here to still help you. So if you're a current customer, just reach out to account management at GoFormz.com. If you have the more technical IT related questions, please feel free to contact our support team at support@GoFormz.com. And if you are absolutely new to GoFormz, you are only here because you heard e-signature and you got excited and you just want to know what on earth this platform is about, then please reach out to sales@GoFormz.com and they'll be happy to walk you through a personalized demo to get you more comfortable with the platform. And I believe that's everything we've got. So stay tuned for our next webinar, and hopefully you're all having an amazing Thursday or pre-Friday, however you want to refer to it. And don't forget that it's a perfect excuse to go eat popcorn today, because apparently that's a national holiday and it's just not festive if you don't.
I'm gonna go get some popcorn for sure.
Good.
I'm so happy you mentioned that.
I support this decision wholeheartedly. Very passionate. All right, have a wonderful day, everyone. Thank you all so much for attending, and we'll see you next time.
Bye, guys.
Thanks, everyone.